Hello, Alabama fans. It's Friday the 13th. I didn't even think about that till right now. When I was growing up, that was a big deal. Like, my mom literally didn't want me to go out.
Mhm.
She's like, you can't go out. It's Friday 13th. I'm like, you didn't even let me see the movies. I'm assuming you didn't see the movies. How do we know what's going on? I think my mom used to go watch those movies without me. But happy Friday to everybody. BOL Big Show is here. I'm Tim Watts, the publisher of Bama Online. With us is team writer extraordinaire Charlie Potter, also the editor, and our young gun, brother from another mother. He's like a nephew. He's like a nephew to Charlie and a grandson to me, but we love him. Blake Byler. He loves the basketball. It's great to have him on board and be able to talk some hoops. I gave Blake, look, when I hired Blake, there's one thing I required: get AJ. He said he had AJ. AJ was going to commit. He guaranteed me this.
This is where we're starting. All right.
This. I said, all you got to do is get AJ. That's all you got to do. Now, he did donate his salary for the next 3 years to the next number one player, so all that's working out. But, anyways, guys, welcome to the show. Are y'all in the Christmas spirit just yet?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think every present we have in the house is wrapped. That's the thing. I like a full Christmas tree with gifts under. I don't like the people. Like I was telling Blake,
That's awesome.
when we got here, I got a text message. I woke up to a text message that said, "What do you want for Christmas?" Like you said, today is December 13th. Like,
Too
what are
late.
we doing?
Too late.
Like, no, I'm very
We're-
much in the Christmas spirit. I need to watch more movies. I'm not on your level at that point, but it's a good time of year. I love this time of year.
What about you, Blake? You're a young man, recently engaged. Again, congratulations. How does that work? Are you still buying presents, or is your parents still buying yours? And do you know there might not be a Santa Claus? Did we just
Yes.
break that on? Okay,
And
I didn't want to break. I didn't want to break. I didn't want that on my soul.
listen, we've had our Christmas tree up at my house since like before Thanksgiving. So we've been in the
Mm.
Christmas spirit for plenty of time. Gifts are pretty much all bought, and I mean we're ready to go. Like Charlie said, it's December 13th. So
Yeah,
you got to be getting ready by this point.
How many
yeah.
Christmas trees do you guys have in your house this year, Tim?
I think we got four. Two got hidden. Two didn't get put out. I
I
don't
was
know
fixing to say
why.
four is kind of low.
Yeah, my wife usually does six. I don't think the Bear Bryant or the Alabama tree got put up downstairs yet.
Oh,
Um,
that's the dynasty is officially
That's
over.
well, it's downstairs. Yeah, she retired. That would save. It's a good point. All right, this tree's going with Nick. Have y'all? What's your first last Christmas question? What's your first Christmas movie? What will it be? Or if you've already watched it, what
Well,
was it?
I guess technically you happen upon them on TV and you maybe stop,
Yeah,
but haven't watched them all the way through. I love Christmas Vacation and Jim Carrey's The Grinch. Those are probably like
nice.
1A, 1B for me. I know the wife likes Home Alone. I feel like Home Alone is on anytime you turn on TV. Even when you get YouTube TV, it's somehow like on. It's
Yeah,
like Friends. It's just on all the time. So like
yeah.
it's fallen down a few pegs for me. But no, I quote that Jim Carrey Grinch movie throughout the year just because it's so funny and
And you're
quotable.
so cheerful. And you're
Hmm.
so
It,
Charlie's
it fits, yeah. I
Charlie's like, give
feel
me
I
some
feel
lines.
seen. I feel seen in that movie.
What about you, Blake?
Those are good. I think Elf's my go-to. Has been since I was a kid. It's always been a favorite. I haven't actually sat down to watch one yet, though. I need to do that. There's been too much stuff going on, but
That's
I'm
fair.
sure over the next week or so we'll get around to that.
Four Christmases. I can't recommend it enough to adults. If you haven't seen it, Blake, if you have seen it, we watch our first one every year. Vince Vaughn, you know what I love about it? It's 1 hour, 33 minutes, 32 minutes. I don't have to, there's nothing worse than seeing a Christmas movie and it's 2 hours and 12 minutes. I'm like, there's no way this is happening. Anyways, big news this week for Alabama players in the bowl game. You know, there was a lot, Charlie Potter, this year. Fans after a loss would say, nobody cares, the NIL and all that. We never felt that was true. You give this much effort for a sport. This isn't little league's a lot of effort. Middle school, high school, college, it's a lot of effort. But at college, it's at a next level. Obviously, we got some good news from the leaders on this team that'll probably keep that precedent going.
Yeah, no opt-outs, at least none that we know of. And after Thursday's practice, it was I think their first or second for the bowl game. We heard from Jalen Milroe, Jahad Campbell, Parker Brailsford, and Damani Jackson, and all of them are playing in the bowl game. I think the big one everybody wanted to know about was Jalen Milroe, and he wasn't. he wasn't going to go out there and talk about what he was going to do after the bowl game. I think you can kind of read between the lines, though, with what he said about, what he's going to decide moving forward. But I think for him and a lot of these guys, it's about finishing. Jalen, you can kind of predict sometimes what he's going to say when he gets behind the mic. He has his buzzwords and key phrases he's going to lean on, but he's talked about finishing all season long. So to hear him say that after not making the playoff and going into a bowl game that some people might not care about as much, it was the same tune, and I don't think that's surprising at all. I think we were actually supposed to hear from Tyler Booker and Malachi Moore on Thursday too. I mentioned that on the message board before we went down for interviews. Both of those guys practiced. Those are two that I really wasn't worried about in the least bit. Tyler Booker after the Oklahoma game, those questions started to come up because at that point we kind of didn't, think the playoff was even possible. But Booker said after the Oklahoma game, he's going to play in as many games as Alabama has left. Malachi Moore bleeds crimson. I know we all do, but his is definitely, his might have some houndstooth flex in it for sure. But, those guys were big. I think Jahad Campbell's big too. He's a guy that I think has a definitely pro potential after this season. And, seeing just what happened to a teammate in Deontay Lawson, you probably give some pause to that in terms of thinking about playing the game. But yeah, I don't think anybody's opting out. The guys that enter the portal won't play. That's not a surprise. So Alabama will be down some receivers and some other positions, but your key leaders that we've talked about all season long, they've all chosen to play. And I think that's a good thing for Alabama.
Yeah. And, you set that precedent. Me and Charlie talked, Blake, about Jalen playing. I think Jalen's going to be harshly criticized, and not saying that there hasn't been criticism that he's deserving, but I think 5 years from now, we're going to think differently about Jalen. I go back to Jalen Hurts. Charlie and I sat there in the middle of the constant criticism. No, everybody remembers him pretty fondly. In fact, they'll fight you. They'll fight Oklahoma fans about whether he's a Bama guy or not. I think Jalen wanted to carry on that tradition. Again, I'm going to keep saying it. 2-0 against Georgia, 2-0 against Auburn, 2-0 against LSU. Went to the playoffs, won an SEC championship. But getting Jalen back kind of probably set the tone for the other ones, I have to think.
Absolutely. I mean, it starts from the top down when you look at where the opt-outs are going to come from. I kind of look back 2 years ago at the Sugar Bowl, whenever Bryce Young and Will Anderson said that they're going to play. Nobody else really on that team is going to have the right to say, I'm not playing, and they are. Like, that's just not going to happen. And so when you look at your team captains in Jalen Milroe, and we assume Tyler Booker and Malachi Moore, like when your captains decide they're going to play, even if they have a potential NFL future, like that's going to set the tone for the rest of the roster. And I like that point. I also agree that I think Jalen Milroe is going to be looked at a little more fondly as the years pass and as people have time to really think about what he meant to this program during this transition, not just the play that was a little frustrating at times and that was a little inconsistent. He had some big moments, and I think those are going to be remembered a little more than his shortcomings, but really more than anything that he and Booker and Malachi and Deontay Lawson, and they were the guys that stuck around through this transition from Nick Saban to Kalen DeBoer. And then they helped in the bowl game in a season that was more disappointing than they anticipated, than they expected. It wasn't what they wanted to accomplish. They didn't quit. They decided to continue to play and continue to kind of instill that culture that you want to have at a program like this. And I think that's going to go a long way too. When you have a culture of guys who are still trying to be competitive and play, I think that goes a long way. I mean, you look at what happened with Florida State this past season. I mean, maybe it's not all because of the opt-outs, but they had an unreasonable amount of opt-outs in the Orange Bowl last year. And then you look at their team coming back this year, it's kind of pieced together with a lot of transfer portal guys, and then they end up going 2-10. And I'm not saying Alabama was going to go 2-10 if Jalen Milroe and Tyler Booker and those guys opted out, but it does go a long way in making sure that culture stays intact going forward, and it sets a standard that the guys after them are going to want to uphold.
Look, we love the fans. I mean, we love how, fanatics, we're versions of those too. But when you're caught up in that moment as things go on, and this season has been emotional. I mean, how many times did you think Alabama was out of the playoffs, and then the Al Pacino Godfather 3, which is an underrated movie, grossly criticized because of one miscasting of the director's daughter, they pull us back in and we're all excited, right? And then we're like, what's the one thing that can't happen? We can't have a close Clemson SMU game, Charlie. And I'll be damned if we didn't have a close. And even in that game, hey, they're blowing it away. Let's root for Clemson. SMU's back. Let's root for SMU. 56-yard field goal. We get the emotions, right? It has, by every definition, been a roller coaster.
Yeah, I mean, it came down to like the last 12 hours of the season before Selection Sunday. I had 2 stories ready to roll on Saturday night, depending on what happened in the outcome of that game. Could have had 3, honestly, had Clemson blown them out. So it was up and down. And, I think too, like you look at the losses, I know people point to the Vanderbilt game. I think the Oklahoma game is the one that's stuck in people's craw, and Jalen Milroe had a lot to do with that. But the Vanderbilt game really wasn't on Jalen. Jalen played well in Nashville. And I think had Alabama's offense gotten another opportunity late in the game, that they could have won that game. That's one that I know people look at Vanderbilt and Oklahoma as the same. Maybe one's worse than the other, but different circumstances in those. So, yeah, I mean, I agree with what both of you guys said. I think Jalen, give it a couple years, and that guy shows back up at Bryant-Denny during his bye week when he's in the NFL, and there's going to be a raucous applause for him, no doubt. And also, too, we were talking about it with the guys opting out to get news that Parker Brelcher is going to come back. That's huge for this team too. So yeah, it was a good news for most people Thursday. I know some were wanting Jalen just to move on, not playing the bowl game, so maybe that gives other guys reps. But I think, like echoing what Blake said, it's good for the culture. It says a lot about this team, what they think about each other and what they think about Kalen DeBoer and this coaching staff.
Yeah, Blake. Give us some early thoughts on the Michigan game. What's the excitement level? I mean, you kind of wonder without that, if you have a bunch of opt-outs, probably not the same. I do think these are big, based on the Michigan reaction. They weren't happy to see everybody was playing. I think they wanted to win that bowl game. What's your excitement level right now? Of course, it could change, in the next couple of weeks. We still have 18 days till this game.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're pretty far out, so it's hard to get like super amped up for it. I think I'm decently excited for it. I mean, it's still it's 2 big brands, so I think that kind of adds to the excitement. Where as Alabama could have been playing like an Illinois or a team that's not really as flashy as a Michigan. I think it's fun to see a quote unquote revenge possibility for the Rose Bowl last season. This is like the 3rd time in 5 years that Alabama and Michigan have played in a bowl game, which is pretty crazy. But it's also cool that you're going to get to see these guys who have opted into the bowl game play in what could be their last Alabama game. So you've got some opportunities to see guys try to go out on top. You've also got, with some of these transfer portal exits, you've still got the chance to see some young players play. I know, especially at the wide receiver spot, I'm not sure who the wide receiver 3 is going to be in this game, with them having lost 3 guys to the transfer portal already. So there's some kind of mysterious, like, we don't know who is going to win the job for this one game in these different spots. But I think it'll be fun. I mean, bowl games are fun. Bowl season is fun. It's not the end of, obviously they want to go out on top. It's not the end of the world if they lose. It's just kind of one of those non-playoff bowl games that we've gotten accustomed to here in the last couple of years. But I think it'll be a good time. And anyone who's an Alabama fan is going to end up being excited to watch Alabama play Michigan, no matter where the bowl game is, what the bowl game is, what part of the season it is. Like, I think that's going to be exciting in and of itself once we get to New Year's Eve.
For anybody watching the show, we'd appreciate if you do us a favor, hit that thumbs up, like and subscribe. It just reminds you, it's one of the easiest way for us to keep the show free. Enjoy y'all being here. I think a lot of y'all watch might not necessarily know that you can subscribe. You get notifications. There's no photos of the BOL guys in a calendar form coming to your email, so you'll just get those. Yeah, that's true. We need 12 guys. We're 6 short. We're working our way there.
We can just do twice.
Hey, which months do y'all want, baby?
Yeah.
Which months do we get?
December.
So, yeah. Absolutely. But please do us a favor, hit like and subscribe. Appreciate you being here. You can get the notifications that we're coming on. And again, all of our content, Bama Online, it's been busy. BamaOnline.com. We've had a lot of information this week. It's been fun. The portal's busted wide open. Later in the show, we're going to have Andrew Bone, the recruiting editor. Jimmy Stein comes in. We'll have some thoughts on college football, the portal, recruiting, and then Joseph Hastings at the tail end. but we appreciate you being here. Charlie, let's skip ahead a little bit before we get to some basketball. The 2025 schedule came out.
Mhm.
I haven't went deep, but I was a little surprised to see on the roundtable they said Auburn had 3 weeks to prepare for Bama. I literally thought, I was like, what the hell? Like, what happened? And I saw they had at Vanderbilt, which probably won't be as easy to scheme for. You'll probably need an off week after that. But I noticed something looking at these schedules. I noticed, and I haven't checked everybody, but Bama and Auburn have an off week before Georgia. I mean, Kirby's already mad. You know what I mean? Kirby's already mad. He's already got a tough schedule. Greg Sankey's probably not going to be switching Christmas cards this year. But early thoughts on the Alabama schedule?
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things when we dropped the discussion thread when the show was on. Is just people kind of sarcastically saying, "Can't wait to see everybody have a bye week before they play Alabama." And like you said, it kind of happens for a lot of teams. Alabama has byes before it plays Georgia and LSU. The schedule is very similar to this season. In the fact of how it kind of lays up. There's some changes. Obviously, you add Florida State at the top. That should be an interesting game to start the season. We knew that, though. We knew that for a long time. So this is really just the league schedule. And you get Georgia off that first bye as your last game in the month of September. Then you host Vanderbilt. You go to Missouri, Tennessee at home, and then travel to South Carolina before a bye week. So that's a really tough 5-game stretch in the SEC. I think that game at South Carolina, I think a lot of people can argue that's the second hardest game on the schedule right now, especially if South Carolina kind of returns everybody that they should. Then after the second bye, you don't leave the state of Alabama in the month of November. You get LSU and Oklahoma and Eastern Illinois at home, and then travel to Auburn for the regular season finale. So it's a tough slate. The byes set up the same way they did this year. After the first 3 and before the final 4. And so it's going to be interesting. I think, again, that game at Georgia, a game at South Carolina, a game at Auburn, I think the games that people are going to circle in the calendar. But home games against LSU, Tennessee, Oklahoma should be another fun one. And it's another tough one. It's one that Alabama has 2 Power 4 non-conference games on it before that first bye week. You go to Florida State and you welcome Wisconsin to Bryant-Denny Stadium in week 3. So should be a tough one, should be a fun one. But it's very, very similar to this past year's schedule.
The one thing about the committee was everybody threatening in roundabout ways to cut out the out-of-conference games. I like seeing at FSU and Wisconsin. I mean, it's not something we've seen, or if we have seen, it's been so long ago. You look at Alabama's upcoming out-of-conference schedule, Notre Dame, Ohio State, a bunch of teams, West Virginia. Like those are games that interest me because we never see them. Plus, I want to see if Charlie survives West Virginia people.
I've been to West Virginia before. That was only to snowboard. I haven't been up in like coal miner Nick Saban country, but that was.
That's who's coming to the game, mister.
Yep.
Blake, what are your thoughts? You see those games up there. You're relatively new to the beat. New games exciting for you to go along with the new traditional games. Georgia, we're seeing back-to-back years. You're seeing Oklahoma back-to-back years. Just very interesting schedule and a fun game, fun schedule to look forward to.
Yeah, I mean, I'll get to hit 4 new stadiums next year, so that'll be really cool. I've never been to any of them but Auburn, so that would be Florida State, Georgia, South Carolina, and Missouri will all be new for me. So that's
nice.
Personally very exciting. But also, I think the schedule, I think it sets up decently well for Alabama. Obviously, it's a hard schedule, but just with the way that it's formatted and the way the slate is, I think it sets up decently well. The bye week before the road trip to Georgia is great. I think the bye week before LSU is always good. I think it's nice to have 3 straight home games before you have to go to Auburn, because we know no matter how good or bad Auburn is, that game's going to be extremely tough. Obviously, the hardest stretch would be those back-to-back Tennessee and at South Carolina games, but you get a bye week right after. So it's not like 3 or 4 like super challenging, like top 25 games in a row. I think a sneaky one is that Missouri road game, because they get a bye week before hosting Alabama. And that was kind of the same situation that Vanderbilt found themselves in last year. It was the same situation Oklahoma found themselves in last year. So that will be tough, but I think overall it sets up decently well, or really as well as you can when you're playing in the SEC and you're playing 10 Power 4 games. It can only be so easy, but I think it's a decent setup.
Creighton comes to town. I always worry about these games because, one, they're good. 2, they had a rough patch. They dropped 3 in a row.
Mhm.
This is a good basketball team. They lost a player that I really liked. I mean, that's a tough break this early in the season, but dropped back-to-back games. Have they been on the road? I think this is their first true road game based on this schedule. Do either of y'all know? I don't see an by anybody. I know they had some tournaments and stuff in there.
I'm looking at the schedule right now.
I mean, that to me looks like this is their first true road game.
I think it
of
is.
the schedule. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, I was looking
That's
like,
crazy.
I got old eyes. I'm like, where's the where's the But I'm sure some of these were in different areas. But they came off that stretch: Nebraska, San Diego State, Texas A&M losses. Played really well, I thought, against Texas A&M, who's a good, solid team. Then had wins against Notre Dame, Kansas, which surely opened your eyes a little bit. And then they blew UNLV out. So they're kind of clicking coming in here against a team that's ranked 7th and 8th in the country. I know both of y'all will be at that game. I'm going to attend to with the family. So looking forward to that. This is graduation weekend, right, Charlie?
Yeah, we were talking about it. We went to Coleman after football interviews on Thursday. They were setting up for graduation. So they'll have graduation on Saturday and have to clear all that out to get ready for the basketball game. So that should be fun for those people over at Coleman Coliseum. But yeah, it's the biggest home game of the non-conference slate. And I think with it being on graduation weekend, it'll be interesting to see the turnout. I think the students, they'll still probably be there. Again, like I said, it's when you look at just the non-conference schedule for Alabama, it's by far and away the best game at home. So I expect a big crowd, primetime tip, and against a hated rival in the Creighton Blue Jays.
Yeah. What are your thoughts there, Blake? I know we do consider them a rival, just like North Carolina considers us their rival, but we're like, whatever. It's just a game to us. What's your thoughts,
Yeah,
Blake?
don't forget that 2012 NCAA tournament game. Never forget. But I don't sleep on this Creighton team. I know they're not ranked right now. I know they've lost 3 games, but this is a good team. They came into the year, I think top 20, maybe top 15 in the AP poll, and that was for good reason. They've lost a couple games, but none of them have been to necessarily bad teams like Nebraska, San Diego State, Texas A&M. All pretty decent. And then they went and beat Kansas, which was the number 1 team in the country at the time. So they've got a lot of potential and they've got good players. Ryan Kalkbrenner, their center, is probably an All-American caliber guy. He's 7'2". So that could be a bit of a problem. We've seen Alabama struggle with some interior post play throughout the year, especially thinking back to that road game at Purdue. So we'll probably get a healthy dose of Cliff Amore in this one just to see how this is why Alabama went and got Cliff Amore, was whenever you play bigs like this and you need somebody who can wall up and defend against a guy like that. Like you said, Tim, they lost Ashworth for the year, which is a little tough. He's one of their better guards or one of their better players. But I think Alabama should win this. I think they'll probably be favored. The line's not out yet, but I think they'll probably be favored by 7 or 8 points. I think that's what the line is on KenPom. I'm excited. I'm excited to see a big-time game in Coleman Coliseum. I'm excited to see any game in Coleman Coliseum because we haven't been there in over a month, which is really crazy when you think about it. Alabama's last game at home, last true home game was on November 11th, which was the Monday of the second week of the season. So they played 3 games in about 8 days and then haven't been back home since then, which is just insane. It's nice, though, that this is the last game of kind of their brutal 7-game Power 4 non-conference stretch, because after this you've got a road game to North Dakota, but that team's not really good at all, and then 2 home games against mid-majors. So you kind of get to slow it down here and get your legs back under you as you enter SEC play, and that's going to be an absolute gauntlet. So I like the way that they scheduled this out. You had some tune-ups, then you had the big meat of the non-conference schedule, and then you get to kind of get your feet back under you and have I think they only play 3-4 more games until SEC play, and it's the middle of December. A lot of teams are playing really a bunch of games in December. Alabama plays 5 games total in this month. So it's a good setup, a good way to get healthy and get some guys back and get ready to go for SEC play. But it starts with this Creighton game, and they got to close out kind of this 7-game Power 4 stretch, Power 5 stretch with a win.
Well, guys, we appreciate it. Y'all go catch up on a Christmas movie. You got the weekend off. You don't have the weekend off.
No.
I'm sure I was trying to act, I was trying to lie to the crowd, but Charlie's going no before I said it. Y'all get your Christmas movie in. If you need recommendations, you know to call, text me. Charlie and I text all day. He's like, "Well, haven't I heard from you?" 6 a.m. So, but appreciate you guys. We'll be having a show next week. Sure, some portal news, maybe some breaking news, say maybe some basketball. But Blake, one last thing on your thing is I thought Nate Oats brought this team home to wash their clothes, play Creighton, and go to North Dakota. He literally comes for one game and goes across the country though. But that is a Grant Nelson move, which is a great deal for NATO's. Anyways, we appreciate you guys. You can find them on BamaOnLine.com, constant content, constant message board posts, good thoughts, and no pellet grills. We need your pellet grill reviews. But other than that, we appreciate everything you guys do, and we'll talk to you soon.
See you, Tim.
All right,
See you guys. Hi, guys. Nobody says hello to me. I always have to say
segment.
hello.
Rough
Jimmy,
segment.
You a little sick, Jimmy?
I mean, just typical weather change, cold.
Yeah, I hear you. Andrew, how are you doing?
I'm good. How you doing?
Doing good, buddy. It's good to see you again. Jimmy Stein, welcome to the show. Andrew Bone, welcome to the show. Two of my favorite people, known and worked against Andrew for over 20 years. We're BFFs. Well, I'm his BFF. He's in the friend tree on the lower branches. And Jimmy Stein,
you friend zoned him.
And I know Jimmy Stein when we had long hair, we had mullets, we had rat tails, we partied.
We met at a Poison concert, I think.
I so wish that was true.
That was a good story.
I wish that was true. Anyways, welcome to the show, guys. It's been busy. I mean, Alabama missed the playoffs. We're talking with Charlie and them earlier about almost felt like Charlie Brown on Thanksgiving trying to kick that ball Lucy's holding. Because after Oklahoma, I had no thoughts of going to the playoffs. And then we're back, and then we're gone, and everything that's happened. The portal's busted wide open. We finished signing day where the Alabama staff did great. Andrew, give us some thoughts. Signing class went great. We're in the portal battle now. Patience is kind of a virtue, which is hard to say because things are moving so fast.
It has been the biggest roller coaster ride that we have, I think any of us have ever been on in this profession. It was starting on January. I mean, I guess you can even go back to last December. Getting into the playoff, winning against Georgia in the SEC championship game. After that pass from Jalen Milroe to the other receiver in the Auburn game, and it's just been a crazy year, and all the ups and downs that we saw throughout the recruiting cycle, the coaching changes. And then the season, it was obviously tough not making it to the college football playoff. You look at the 12 teams and you're thinking, Alabama is one of the 12 best teams in the country when they want to be. But they can also be in the bottom 12 when they want to be. So, I get it. But I'm glad to see that the Alabama football team is sticking together. They're playing in this bowl game against Michigan. They want to go out with one more win. Get the 10-win season, and they could have easily packed it in, and some of these guys could have not waited, but set out and waited to the NFL draft. But they got a lot of pride in Alabama, and it's good to see.
Jimmy, I like the thing that stands out to me the most basically was this Alabama team saying, "What do you mean? Are we playing?" Isn't that the vibe you got? Like, is this a real question? I know they didn't say that, but. I mean, Damani, who's a man of few words, said everybody should be playing. Just dropping a mic and walking away, not intentional. It was just matter of fact, we're playing.
Yeah, and I think it's huge culturally. I mean, culturally, this is big. I mean, Kalen DeBoer has to establish his own culture at Alabama. It doesn't have to be radically different than Nick Saban, but what there really needs to be is buy-in, people excited to be on the roster. We have to remember that Kalen DeBoer inherited most of the team he just coached this fall. A lot of those guys were like, hey, let's give the new guys a chance. Next year's team, guys, every single player on next year's team will have chosen to play for Kalen DeBoer. They were either recruited by him, they came in the portal, or they were Saban guys who had multiple chances to have left, and they've chosen to stay. Next fall is really Kalen DeBoer's football team. And I think the culture that's being set by all of them still being in the buy-in, the I'm going to play another game with my brothers. This is really big. And hey, if it had gone the other way, if all the seniors opted out, if all the juniors going pro opted out, and they'd have played this game with next year's team, that would have been fine too. I mean, we'd have gotten a preview of the 2025 team. But I think this is better because this is about culture, and this is about a bunch of kids saying, we not only support the coach, we want to play for him, we want to play for each other. And they're basically taking the cue from Bryce Young and Will Anderson, 2 years ago, which is we don't opt out at Alabama.
Yeah, and the other thing is, after every loss, we heard about a culture issue, right? Every loss, there was no culture issue. I don't know anybody. They do care. They always care. They put a lot more effort in this team than any of us as fans will ever do. Getting up, dirty socks, stinking, sweating, less time with your friends, all that stuff. So they definitely cared. But to see him come out and state this, I mean, if you think, and again, I always say there's a culture issue. Why is the culture issue never after beating Georgia? We got locker room issues. I know we beat Georgia, but the locker room issues don't just show up. What shows up after a loss, Andrew Bone, is frustration, and you're upset. That is natural. We saw a friggin' NFL grown-ass man walk off Monday Night Football, quit on the 49ers last night, refused to go in. We saw that. That's not caring, Andrew.
Yeah, that's not caring. I don't know if over the course of the last couple of weeks, it's just bothered me more and more and more. But seeing just different fans complain about certain players on the Alabama football team, and ready for them to move on, ready, they need to hit the transfer portal, they need to go to the NFL draft. You need to go to the transfer portal. Take your ass home somewhere. Like, I don't care about these Alabama fans that want to complain and bitch about every single thing that goes wrong with Alabama and blame it on a certain player. Like, yeah, they wish they didn't play that bad, but they're out there putting in hours and days and weeks and months and years trying to make this program better. And, they're doing everything that they can. But that just kind of bothers me more than probably anything is the hatred, trashing a lot of these guys when a lot of these guys did everything they could to hold this team together. And as Jimmy mentioned, there were so many different changes, coaching changes, philosophies, so many different things throughout the entire building that a lot of these players were not expecting this time a year ago. They were not expecting a complete coaching turnover, but a lot of these guys stuck with it. They stuck with the game plan. They went out there. They won 9 games this season. I am looking forward to the future. I think there's a bright future ahead with Coach DeBoer and this staff, and they recruited extremely well. And there's a lot of guys in this recruiting class and parents that we have talked with that are really excited about the future, and they believe that this is going to be a team that that really bounces back. So I give a lot of credit to the players that stuck it out, that have been there for the last last year when a lot of players quit on the team and moved on.
Yeah, and I mean, you look, everybody, and look, Nick Saban set the bar high. You know what I mean? It's dating the most beautiful girl in the world, and then after dating her, you need to settle in and find what's comfortable. Probably not going to top that standard, the most beautiful girl, beautiful man, whatever you're into. But Alabama answered massive questions. Can he recruit? You're damn right they can recruit. They had the number 3 class in the country, and here's what's funny. Can't compete with Texas. They're dropping bags. Oregon's dropping bags. Ohio State. They did. They're in the top 5 with them in Georgia. They're in the top 5 they're ahead of Georgia, who every time Georgia gets a player, we hear, I wish we could get that guy. Well, got a team full of them. Team full of guys that Georgia would take, Jimmy Stein.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the roster's in good shape. Just because you lost a couple of games you shouldn't isn't really a reflection on the roster. I mean, it's a team sport, not an individual sport, but, sometimes the number 1 player in tennis, the number 1 ranked player in the world, he loses to the number 30 ranked player. That's sports. That just happens. And it doesn't mean that, wait, the talent's not as good as we thought. I think the roster this past season was good. I don't think it was vintage Nick Saban. I don't think it was the best roster they've ever had. I think a lot of the Saban teams had issues and flaws.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Jimmy. I said roster. I'm more talking about the recruiting class
Okay.
they had.
Oh,
yeah,
my
bad.
okay. No,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Sure.
I'm sorry. I said roster, but I'm talking about guys that will be on the roster. That is a team full of guys recruited by Oregon, recruited by Georgia, recruited by Texas.
Yeah, the number 2 recruiting class is right now ranked number 2, and I'm sure it might change a little bit. I'm sure
it's actually number 3, and
Is it
that's
3
not
now?
Jimmy's
Okay.
fault. It literally can change any morning.
Did it
And
change
one
this
day
morning?
it changed 3 times in 24 hours. So Jimmy, I'm sorry, I'm
No,
already
I'm glad
interrupting.
I'm glad you told me that, and it's probably going to be affected when Ty Haywood, signs somewhere else. That's going to affect it too. But I don't really care myself specifically whether the class finishes 2, 3, 4. I just want to be. I've just learned over the years what you want to be is in the top group. If you're in the top group, then you're fine. Any class that is in the top group 3 or 4 years from now, when we look back, any one of those classes could prove to be the best. As long as you're in that top group, you're in contention for 3 or 4 years from now. When we look back, who actually signed the best group? And Alabama put themselves in that spot by not overspending, by smartly picking and choosing, by evaluating. I love the evaluations. The number one thing I'll say, guys, we're passing back to you, Tim, is where this class stood out to me and what DeBoer and Courtney Morgan stood out to me was the evaluations. They got in on Keelan Russell before everybody else did. They got in on Jackson Lloyd before everybody else did. They got in on Latsier Brooks. And there are still some that aren't even in on Latsier Brooks, but we all know he's going to be fantastic. This staff showed me already they're really good evaluators. And that's where recruiting is to me, guys. A lot of people think recruiting is sitting in a kid's living room and being the salesman. To me, recruiting starts with and ends with great evaluation of talent. Who are the best evaluators? They end up being the best recruiters to me. It's not just the sales pitch in some kid's living room.
Andrew, we've got 11 guys in the portal. I would say I look at this group and I don't see a surprise among the 11. Charlie Potter has a great story on BamaOnline.com. We've covered a lot of visitors that are coming in this week. Alabama's obviously being pretty quiet with a lot of those guys. And also, we should note that the portal visitor can be scheduled Friday and never show up. He commits Thursday, which we've seen. But just looking at what Alabama's lost, Andrew, does anybody jump out to you? I mean, some of these guys, people were I had guys texting me, didn't even know some of these guys were still on the team, but there's obviously some talented guys also going in.
I think when it first kind of hits the airwaves, that when you see a guy like a Caleb Odom or a Kendrick Law or Kobe Prentice, guys that a lot of people know, it kind of shocks people. But when you start looking at it, you're not really surprised that those guys have entered the portal. I think Caleb Odom is a guy that could have been an elite player down the road. Was he going to be the number 1, number 2 option at the wide receiver position next year? Probably not. And I think that's really what he wanted. He was recruited as a tight end, came in as a tight end, and really didn't want to play tight end. He wanted to be a wide receiver because that's what he was in high school. And Alabama new coaching staff came in, they stuck with him there at the receiver position. He had his few opportunities to play, especially in the back half of the season, but just didn't get a lot of looks. And I didn't really see that changing too much. I mean, maybe he becomes the number 3 option or the number 4 option next season at Alabama if he stuck it out, but that wasn't going to happen. As far as Caleb wanting to stick around, so best of luck to him. And you just try to hope to hang on to the guys that are going to make big impacts for your team. And so far, we haven't really seen. Portal's still open, but we hadn't seen a significant loss to this point. So continue to watch and see how it goes.
Jimmy, Kendrick Law, I think, is one we're going to talk about because he has talent. I've never thought he was a wide receiver. I didn't think it in high school. He was a heck of a running back. He was a heck of a safety. I don't know how much wide receiver he even played in high school. I know the film I recall without going back and looking was safety film, running back film. And when he got the ball, he ran like a running back. Obviously preferred wide receiver, couldn't find a great fit with Alabama. We're seeing the same thing with Debo Samuels. A lot of people compare him to Debo, but I think that's a physicality standpoint. Debo's probably be better served as a running back too. Not that they can't be good wide receivers, but I think we'll talk a lot about Kendrick out of the group that's left so far.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that, Tim, because I've been holding back. I didn't want to say that while he was a wide receiver at Alabama, just because it just wasn't the time. But now that he's gone, I do say it. I don't think he should have been playing wide receiver the whole time. He's too good of an athlete not to be more impactful on the field. And frankly, he just wasn't making enough of an impact at wide receiver. I would have liked to have seen what he looked like at safety. At this level, I would have liked to have seen that. I'm doubt he's going to play safety at the new place wherever he goes to. He's a great athlete. What I really like about Kendrick, though, guys, is even though he wanted to be the catch 8 balls for 130-yard guy, he played hard. He played hard all the time. He was a great outside blocker. No one ever questioned Kendrick Law's effort and intensity. Played with a blue collar attitude out there. Did whatever was asked of him, returned kicks, played, did the end arounds. But as an outside blocker, he was really fantastic. And I think that physicality outside to me shows maybe he's probably better off playing a different position. Now, if he goes to a new school, runs routes, and they get him the ball and he's productive as a wide receiver, I'm glad to walk it back. I want things to work out for the kid. He seems like a good guy. But I just don't think the athleticism ever equaled production at Alabama, so maybe he was playing the wrong position, and that happens.
Well, we got bowl games starting tomorrow, if you can believe that. Bama going to the 31st. It's going to be a while. The good news is the practice that they're going to get. They're going to get, I don't know if Charlie said 15. I feel like he said 15 more practices. I don't know if that's actually correct. It could have been 12, but it's going to be close to double digits regardless. That's always beneficial. Andrew, are you ready for bowl season?
No. You saying it started tomorrow is crazy because I was,
two of them.
What's crazier is the playoffs start 1 week from today. You've got the Indiana Notre Dame game next Friday night, which is insane to me. It feels like we get through the recruiting class, the playoff picks, and all that kind of stuff, and then all of a sudden it's here. It's bowl season all of a sudden, which is fun, and I know that there's some. Obviously, a lot of exciting bowl games. Bowl games are also kind of, who knows what's going to happen because all the people that, decide to opt out, that are in the transfer portal, who's going to actually play. And, we saw what Georgia did to Florida State last year when all of Florida State's team decided to take the week off. But it is refreshing to see, Alabama, and we talked about this earlier, but it is refreshing to see all those guys wanting to play in this game, not having to play in it, but wanting to play it.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready. My Pelicans suck. I'm still riding hard with them. They're terrible. I'm now watching them to lose, trying to get a higher pick. I want Dylan Harper for everybody wanting to know my Pelican hot take. I think you saw him play against Alabama. You'd agree with me. Very good player. Roster going into this, we got some visitors that come in. We got Kelby Collins, familiar names. The one thing I enjoy about the portal is everybody that hits, we're asked, could they go after them? Within 30 seconds, which is, hey, and everybody's like, you guys are just unbelievable to answer those questions. We're ready for them. We're expecting them. It doesn't bother us. We're kind of at that stage now. Obviously, want to confuse visitors. We want to confirm visitors and go through all that. But this is a weekend where they're going to have some guys. Kelby Collins is supposed to be expected in today. They're really looking for fits. When I said that earlier with the roster flip, you're looking for fits. It doesn't have anything to do with talent necessarily. You look for guys that fit your system and what you want to do, Jimmy.
Right, and that can be personality-wise. It could be, in the clubhouse, as they say. That's all important stuff. We see how tight-knit this group is. With the no opt-outs and wanting to play in a bowl, you have to get like-minded guys on a team. You don't want to bring in somebody that, like they say, one bad apple can infect the bunch. You got to be careful about that. But here's the thing, Sheridan on offense and Womack on defense, they look for specific things at each position. They inherited what they had when they got here. And that is not to say that Nick Saban recruited bad kids that weren't good athletes. That's not it at all. It's just round peg, square hole issues in terms of what I specifically want, body type wise, speed wise, athletic package. This is what I need for this spot. They just inherited this team. I think these portal guys are a good example of the current staff picking out guys that they think fit their scheme. And hey, it's one-stop shopping at Alabama. You know, Kane Womack didn't get to do this at South. He could go get body types that he wanted for specific positions, but he was limited, obviously, on the talent that he could get at a South Alabama. At Alabama, that's not the case. They can literally recruit anybody they want, anybody they pick out. They have a shot to sign. It's real interesting to me that these are the guys that they handpick for specific roles on the team.
Yeah, and also you got to factor in the NIL. And there's this thing that if Bama loses a guy, they can't compete NIL wise. I just think it's, I think it's basically you have a budget, and any fiscal adult who's not living in his mom's basement and working a part-time job understands you've got to balance your budget. I mean, there's cars all three of us could afford. Does it make sense? Does it, there's a lot of things that go into play with that, insurance, everything. That's how they're shopping with these guys. But what they got, shopping is probably a terrible word, but they're, evaluating.
It's a perfect word.
It's a perfect word. I feel bad. But I mean, Andrew Bone, look who they brought in. Jeremy, Proctor, they had to really dig far, they had to do a deep eval to find Caden Proctor. I'm kidding, obviously. Cuevas has shown us a lot of potential. Jeremy, Parker, some of the best players on this team. Take them off the team and tell me where we're at. Take Parker off the team and where are we at? Take Jeremy off the team, where are we at? So we know they kind of know how to get in the portal, kind of handle their business, and then move on to build that roster.
I saw something the other day. It said per NCAA estimates, as far as NIL programs at each school, and Alabama was kind of, I think they were in that top 10. But Alabama is also not, they're also not giving 10% of that to just one player. Or even 5% of that to just one player. They're having to spread it out, pretty equally, per position. And, they're not just going to go completely over the top. They're going to recruit guys, as you said, that kind of fit what they like to do. And I thought that they did a really good job of that in the transfer portal. In the limited time that they had last year in the transfer portal, now they've got, the same amount of time as everybody else to recruit in the transfer portal. And we've seen what they've already done this week as far as bringing some guys in, some guys that are known guys in the transfer portal that a lot of schools won't. So they're getting those guys in, today, this weekend, and, they'll continue to have some more guys over the course of the next, week or two. But we'll see some more action next week, but it's already off to a good start, and, we'll see who they can end up getting.
Yeah, you look at it, you talk about dead money. My financial guys who are too smart for me, they talk about dead money. Let me tell you about dead money. I don't know what Missouri paid to get Williams Namari last year, right? They paid a ton. He was a top 10 guy. He's a defense. Yeah, they paid a ton. Top 10. Eli Drinkowich jumped up in somebody's lap, like, one of those things like the dad came home from the Army and the little girl jumps in his arms. Eli did that.
That was bad.
Well, Eli jumped in. It looked like all those military shows that make it, those videos that make people cry, that do get you emotional. He was excited. Well, he's not excited now. They paid him. He didn't play. He just went to Nebraska. It's dead money. That is dead money for a player that has never helped you worth a flip. That's what you got to watch against. And that goes back to the developmental positions where offensive and defensive linemen, I'm going to say it a lot. Not every freshman defensive lineman. In fact, a very few percentage are ready to go against Parker or Landon Dickerson because that's who they're battling, Tyler Booker. That's who they're battling. The same thing on the offensive end. So the ones you get that's going to take 2 years, you're basically paying them $300,000 to feed them, house them, train them. Shoot, you're supposed to pay the trainer. Trainer's not supposed to pay you, Jimmy.
That is the real frustrating part of the sport for programs like Alabama, who spend a couple years investing in kids, developing them, getting them ready to play. And then the kid's like, I haven't played yet, so I'm leaving to go someplace where I can play. That's really frustrating because it does take, 2 or 3 years. We got so spoiled through the Saban years with him signing freak after freak after freak. And then I think a lot of fans get the idea that these freshmen can just come in and be stars. And it's just a rare thing. It's not the norm at all. Most of these kids at most of the positions take a while to develop, particularly at the line of scrimmage. And it is frustrating to put a couple years into a kid that you sort of believe in, and then he's out the door before it's his turn to play. That is frustrating, but that is what we have in 2024. And all you can do is just replace that kid through either recruiting or through the portal. That's what's important, guys, to where the guys that you get out of the portal generally are guys that need to be ready to play, because you've lost some developmental guys that weren't playing but might have played in the future. So you need guys to come in that are kind of ready to play. You don't need to repeat the cycle by bringing in redshirt freshmen from somewhere else that you got to spend another 2 years with, and then they're out the door before they play. So it is frustrating, but Alabama is a winner in the portal era. I point that out to everybody all the time. Alabama has won the transfer portal every year, in my opinion, because I think each year they've upgraded their roster based on who left and who came in.
Jimmy Stein, we're going to let you get out of here.
Guys that leave the program, it's a very, very small percentage that you see make an impact somewhere else.
Correct.
Well, there's a lot of stuff going on. Patrick Kutas, who Alabama was supposed to visit Alabama today, committed to Arkansas, committed Ole Miss from Arkansas. Sam Pittman literally I saw a video yesterday where he had 5 games to play, came back from an injury, sat out a game, told Sam Pittman that he wanted to redshirt, and Sam Pittman said, not for another school, and he said, I wouldn't do that to you. And then he redshirted and he went to Ole Miss. So there's a lot at play here, and I think you got to take your emotions out of it if you're a college coach, because at the end of the day, a lot of times emotions aren't going to help you, but I do think it's still a relationship business. Jimmy Stein, we're going to let you get out of here and bring Joseph Hastings in. Jimmy, we will see you next week. We're going to do an early show, maybe talk about some bowl games, talk about this Creighton game that's coming up. I'm pretty excited about Creighton basketball tomorrow night. Are you going, Jimmy?
I am not. We are busy with the Christmas thing.
Okay. Jimmy, have you watched your first Christmas movie yet?
I have watched just one. I watched Elf for the 40th time, and I enjoyed it just as much as I did the first time.
Well, you just moved ahead of Blake, and you moved ahead of Charlie on the BOL Christmas ladder. I'm not even going to ask Andrew, but I am going to ask Andrew. I am going to ask him. Coming up. This Jimmy, we appreciate you. Catch Jimmy Stein on BamaOnLine.com, giving his opinions, writing his stories, shooting the crap. Gets into a little bit of everything. Jimmy, have a good weekend. We'll talk to you soon.
See you guys next week.
See you, Jimmy.
What's up, gentlemen?
Joseph Hastings, have you watched a Christmas movie yet? You're lying. That's a no. Stop.
I'm just trying to.
No. You don't have to go, did I watch a Christmas movie? Come on. Andrew, have you watched one?
When do you have time to watch anything, Tim?
Dude, I multitask. I don't have to sit. I mean, well, also I've seen a lot of them. I can play them in the background. I can't do no noise. You know what I mean? I got to have something in the background. If my house is
you're watching
quiet,
every NBA game. You're watching every NFL game.
I haven't watched as much NBA this past couple of weeks because they got into that mid-season.
The NBA Cup. Yeah.
Well, last year I watched it because the Pelicans were in it. This year it's not as interesting if your team's not in it. It's kind of like
I have no clue about that. So
really, we were under the impression you were an NBA expert. This is shocking.
Yeah. All the NBA threads I'm in every night.
Andrew literally drops in the NBA thread, said that dunk's crazy because he saw it on Twitter and leaves. It is infuriating, but I do laugh at his silliness. All right, we're in the recruiting season. We got portal happening. We got Andrew. Tell us a little bit about the KC drama. That was a little moment for us last night. We had to deal with, and even the drama of getting it on the message board. Me and Andrew had drama with that because I thought he texted me to make a post. I made a post. He made a post. He's like, no, comment in my post. I didn't know what the heck was going on. But we had spent – I don't even know how the fire started. It's like Billy Joel. We didn't start the fire, but we went from –
I'll tell you why it started. So Luke Haas, the former Arkansas tight end, came in for a visit on Thursday, but he arrived early in the morning. So he gets to campus And Tim posts on the board that he is on campus. So because he was on campus, and there was another kid expected to be there on Thursday, Casey Concepcion, who is from NC State, wide receiver. Everybody just assumed he should have been there at the exact same time as Luke Haas, but they were coming from different directions.
Like they rode together. Hey, you want a carpool?
Like they flew in together. But yeah, I mean, yeah, KC ends up coming in a little bit later in the day. But somebody started a rumor on BOL, and it spread pretty quickly. Somebody said that he had canceled the visit, that he wasn't coming in. NIL was a big factor in the decision. So people on Twitter, social media, start tweeting it out. Oh, we canceled the visit, all this stuff. Which they have. Most of these people on Twitter have zero clue. They somehow have built followings of Alabama fans that don't know, and they just tweet stuff out and think it's correct and accurate. Whereas we had never said anything like that. We were still expecting Casey in. Alabama was expecting Casey in. They didn't know what the heck people were talking about online as far as him not showing up. And then all of a sudden, we both get a text. What was that, around 5:30 last night?
He had just arrived. Yeah,
he just arrived. Like, what is everyone talking about? Like, that's just a made up story. So,
well, I mean,
and we deal with that. We're going to deal with that on. Now we're going to deal with that on every single kid.
It spread to slander. I mean, don't get in the bidding war. They canceled him, dude. And look, I'll be honest. I know it's a coping mechanism. Kind of like, it's, kind of like we're not going to get him, but I understand none of that's known. Alabama's not dumb. I mean, Kalen DeBoer, Courtney Morgan are some pretty smart people. They don't just bring you in and go, hey, what's the deal with the NIL? They're already having discussions on whether some guys will never come in. Remember last year, Evan Stewart, I'm arguing like, no, they're not interested. Yeah, they are. No, they're not. Yeah, I mean, you can't will stuff into existence, but that was a good moment. Joseph Hastings, you got any portal thoughts, just how this thing's shaking out? But I do think the one thing everybody watching the show, and please do us a favor, like and subscribe, get those notifications. You might think you like or you've subscribed, but there's nothing that goes with it other than notifications on the show. Keeps the show free. We appreciate you being here. But it should be noted that visits on portal are nothing like weekend official visitors and recruiting for prospects.
Yeah,
high school prospects.
Absolutely. This is definitely different. Like you mentioned, the visit flexibility, how, visits can get canceled, kids can commit, then cancel visits. There's a lot going on at play there. And I think with Alabama and the transfer portal, Kalen DeBoer and his staff proved earlier this year that they can work the portal well to address their needs, in terms of retaining their guys, making some key additions, some contributors, Parker Burlesford, Jeremy Bernard, both coming from Washington. Also, Keon Sabb from Michigan, adding some depth at some key positions. The staff has proven that they can do that. So I think they've kind of earned the trust so far in terms of working the portal, and they're bringing on some top guys onto campus. As we mentioned with KC, Luke Haas, and getting Kelby Collins, on campus as well, who's a familiar name for Bama fans. And look, the portal doesn't end December 28th necessarily. You kids have 5 days until after their team participates in bowl games to enter the portal. So, you could still see some names entering in a few weeks. There's always the possibility of, head coaches at big time schools departing, going to the NFL, going to different teams, other portal windows opening. So, I like the approach that Bama's taking, not putting all their chips into the middle of the table right now, taking kind of a slow and patient approach and, seeing how things play out elsewhere.
Yeah, and a lot of this is just going to be, another thing about the portal, our guy Pete Nakos and Hayes Fawcett's been all over it, but Purdue wide receiver Armad Branch has withdrawn from the transfer portal. Mm-hmm. So sometimes they want to be there. They just want to get their NIL money worked out. And, that's another thing. So many factors going in here that we're dealing with, Andrew. Concepcion sounds like he showed up. He's going to have a lot of suitors. That's another thing is like we hear – the NIL is going to be high. He has a lot of suitors. He has a lot of people after him. But most of these guys Alabama's dealing with have a lot of guys that are chasing them, just like the high school recruits.
And I know everybody kind of wants these kids to commit before they leave campus, or if they don't
Sure.
commit before they leave campus, it means they're definitely not going there. That's not necessarily the case. A lot of these kids are going through the recruiting process for the first time. Some of these kids weren't highly ranked coming out of high school. They may have only taken a couple visits. They want to go out and see different things and do different experiences. Now, you feel a lot better if a kid will go ahead and make a decision before he leaves campus. But there's certain situations where you have to be patient, but you're also not going to just rely on that kid. You're going to go out there and try to bring in somebody else. But from what we've continued to hear, Alabama's also having to continue to battle, some of the, internally, because it could potentially have some guys that might enter the portal, and they're watching to see who Alabama's trying to bring in from the portal as far as visits, not necessarily commitments, but let's say, this is just hypothetically speaking, but you got a guy that has been waiting his turn. He feels like he's got a great chance to start, ready to get to the spring. Then Alabama potentially brings in a 2-3 year starter from somewhere else. That guy might decide he needs to go and look in the portal. So you just don't know what's going to happen. I think that's why Alabama's been very meticulous. They've been very cautious about who they're bringing in, and a lot of stuff's not getting out of the building. They're keeping things pretty tight-lipped, but as we've seen, there's 5, 6, 7 guys that we're consistently kind of talking about right now. I don't think that's going to grow to 20 or more, but you just have to kind of wait and see what happens over the course of the next week.
Another thing fans need to factor in is, like, a lot of these guys in the portal never got the attention in high school they are now. Kevin Concepcion, he's from North Carolina. He visited North Carolina. He visited North Carolina State, 3-star. I think he's ranked top 600 in the country. He's getting a lot of attention now, so there may be a chance to enjoy it and see different things, meet new people. You want to bask in that glow a little bit. You want to say, hey, y'all got it wrong, and now look, how you like me now, Joseph?
Yeah, for sure. And, going off of Bones' point about, fans kind of expecting commitments right after the visits or during visits, I think you kind of get a little bit spoiled seeing how Nate Oats and his staff do things. You get a Houston Mallet on campus, a Chris Youngblood, these transfer guys, and they're usually able to wrap it up fairly quickly and get those commitments either on the day their visits ends or right after. With this transfer portal window here, you got 20 days, potentially more. In terms of the other guys who may enter afterward, you're going to have to see how things play out on the visits, other visits, let them go through the process, talk it over with families, family members, other people who may be involved in the process. A lot of moving parts in this day and age with NIL too. So, let them enjoy it. Let them enjoy that process. This is probably the last time for a lot of them that they're going to be going through it, and kind of want to be wined and dined and see all of their options that they have out there.
So, Andrew, we saw a familiar name visit yesterday, Luke Haas. Alabama did a good job the first time around from Arkansas. Family connection. I believe his brother went there. Feel like they were pretty heavy in that race to begin with, but that was that Hart over what's the other one? Heart or head. Come on, guys. Throw me the alley-oop me.
Hard over mine.
I'm Victor out here. Just throw it up. I'll dunk it.
Bone is older. He has the experience, man. I was letting him.
He went blank first. He went like, what is it?
I was thinking I had something else in my.
It should have been head over heart. I started with heart. That's on me. But that was kind of the deal there. Really liked Alabama. Thought he fit in well. We saw him lose a Georgia kid that same way. That cycle or the next cycle with the lucky family connections there. Yeah, his dad played at Georgia. So Joe Cox was fighting the good fight there, but get him back on campus. He went to LSU, found it interesting. LSU's taking multiple tight ends. They're down to a couple, I think, 2 or 3, and going to Ole Miss next. So obviously a guy in high demand, Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, if the previous Alabama staff was here, I'd probably feel a lot more confident just because of his relationship with that previous staff. So right now you don't know. It's a new staff, but there are some people that are still there support staff-wise that he knows. And, the offense has to definitely be something that's going to be attractive to him. And he knows the campus. He's been around the program before. He probably knows, some of the other guys like David Ballou and Jeff Allen, guys like that. So this is a big visit. He was at LSU. He's going to be going to Ole Miss this weekend. So we'll see how the visit goes. But this is definitely somebody that Alabama likes a lot. Losing guys like C.J. Dupree, Robbie Oats, this would be a great. This would be a fantastic addition if Alabama was able to pull this off. But I think that they're certainly doing all they can to see how things go over the course of the next 24 hours.
Joseph, before we get out of here, the vibe, you've been doing a lot of the catching up with guys who signed. A lot of times through the process, they don't want to be taken for granted. They don't want to be locked in. I mean, I will say Bama had a lot of high guys. I mean, the biggest drama was maybe Michael Carroll visiting Colorado and telling us it was just a visit, and there's still but I mean, Keelan and all those guys. You've been talking to a few of those guys, Steve, and some others. Just give us their thoughts, a generalization, not a breakdown person by person. Before we get out of here, their thoughts on being part of this Bama class, because they're signed and they're sealed. They're soon to be delivered, and this team did not make the playoffs, so it wasn't just who do we lose because we lost a game. Tell us their mindset collectively.
Yeah, I think there's an interesting combination of factors going on at Alabama that are appealing to them. One, there's opportunity for improvement with the team. They went 9-3. They missed the college football playoff. They're trying to get back into it and become national championship contenders again. So, you can kind of be the first class. You can be part of the first class with Kalen DeBoer, his group of guys, and then also help to turn things around, so to speak, at Bama. And get them to the 11, 12 wins, SEC championship, that type of deal. Then there's opportunity to come in and play early, with departures at positions, linebacker and, on the offensive side of the ball, wide receiver departures in the transfer portal. We'll see what happens with NFL draft declarations, offensive line. So we'll see, in terms of future departures there for Alabama's team. But, the players coming in, seeing opportunity to make an impact early, to contribute. And then another thing, too, is the culture, the standard there at Alabama being, kept the same, kept to that same standard as it was with Coach Saban. That's really appealing to some of the guys that I've talked to. Duke Johnson, Stephen Buamau, two guys who, were on Alabama's campus before Coach Saban retired, got to see the culture there, and have seen it after. They liked what they've seen with Coach DeBoer and company. So, there's just a lot of excitement about the future, and to come in and be a part of the group that turns things around at Alabama and gets them back on top.
Well, guys, you can find Andrew Bone. I just want to get loud there for a minute. You can find Andrew Bone on BamaOnLine.com, unless he doesn't watch a Christmas movie. If he doesn't, this will be his last YouTube show. Joseph, the only reason.
Wait, well, you know what? We forgot. I have watched The Grinch.
Well, that's a Christmas movie. Yeah. Okay, you get another week.
Audrey and I have not sat down and watched.
If you watch it, that's all my heart cares about. Joseph, we had an opening to hire you because the last guy didn't watch a Christmas movie. That's not a threat in any way. I'm just saying.
I watched Iron Man 3. That's a Christmas movie. So
what is
Iron Man 3?
That is definitely not a Christmas movie.
It's definitely. Hey guys, check the guys and gals. Put in the comments right now. Iron Man 3 is a Christmas movie, just like Die Hard.
Guys and gals, we're blocking everybody that agrees with that. I'm just including Joseph. No. I'll check it out and see if it is. I am the Christmas verifier. Yeah. I'm a self-appointed Christmas movie verifier. So we appreciate you guys. You can see us on BamaOnLine.com. Don't forget to give us that thumbs up. Andrew, show them that weird thumb. Thumbs up and like. That's it. That's things not normal, dude. See it? That should not be like that.
Thumb, baby.
Dude, I don't know what.
It's an Alabama hitchhiker thumb.
Oh, that's what it is. Well, we appreciate everybody that tuned in for the show. We're here to have a good time. Hope you enjoyed it. And we will see you next week. And there could be breaking news at any moment. We're not predicting it, but a lot of activity in the portal. And eventually something's going to fall. But everyone have a good weekend. And Roll Tide, Creighton, and Alabama tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. Andrew, say goodbye.
Thank you guys for watching. See you at BamaOnline.com.
Joseph Hastings.
Roll Tide. See you all at BOL.